what would be your recommendations to the board as far as to moving forward?
I mean, at this point, Boa Vida is in violation of their contract. Specifically, item 6, the failure to provide adequate staff. I would suggest that you give notice that they are in breach of the contract. The contract says they have 30 days to come back into compliance. There's also the assignment of the lease to Mission. There is an additional term, I'm sure that you're aware. The current contract says that the facility has to be operated as an acute care hospital. If that additional term that they can operate as RDH is not in the contract, they're going to be in violation on day one. So I think that additional term in the contract would cover that contingency. I would like to see the city and an independent board be incorporated into that contract, to where the city and independent people truly have a partnership. And I understand the pushback from a for-profit company. You don't want them determining day-to-day operations and salaries and that sort of thing. But I think that you're in a position now where that's something that can be bargained for. And I don't know what your position from a contract standpoint would be for that, but I would like to see an assignment with there being provisions in there for some oversight, not from this board, but from an independent board like you have at other facilities. Because I think that's truly what a partnership is, and not lip service. Not saying that. And from what I understand, the old hospital to be like, that's when it really worked. When there were people in the community that had some oversight.
Yes.
And certainly there would be parameters around that, and it not being overstep. But I like that idea for the city. You may, and ultimately I work for you guys, so if you want to assign it without that in it, I will find a legal path to that forward. But I think you guys are in a situation now where that can be bargained for. It's not a part of your original contract, so if you assign it and don't bargain for that now, it probably wouldn't be a reality.
I mean, I honestly think that would be the best suggestion going forward with anybody that we choose to have a independent board to oversee like it used to be years ago. And it did work then. You worked there then. So.
And that would be my recommendation. One is to provide notice to Boa Vida, to where if it's this board's pleasure to assign the contract and sort of negotiate towards an assignment with those provisions that provide sort of more community input, if that falls apart, then Boa Vida, you know, that can be terminated and you can get someone else in. But I think that notice needs to be given to Boa Vida. It's not specifically on the agenda. So I think there's some notice issues with that. I think it needs to be on the agenda for the next meeting. But my recommendation would be if it's this board's pleasure to assign the contract to Mission, that there be some negotiations about what a true partnership would look like.
I don't really think that you have to negotiate. I would agree to that. Absolutely. I don't think you can have a partnership if you don't have oversight transparency, trust, and there just seems to be a lot of distrust, and I get it, I've sat in your seats before. And so I don't think that has to be bargained, that'd be something we would do. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but normally, when we take a look at hospitals to help turn them around, we got time, but you're out of time. You've got nurses that have quit, will some come back, your radiology director, you know, will he come back? You're out of time in that thing. So if you give notice to cure, maybe they can. They also have a state, you know, a CMS and a state immediate jeopardy.
So talk to me about the January 20th. What was that date again?
That was just a date that they originally asked, Bill had originally asked us when they were given notice by your current ER group to provide ER staffing, physician staffing on like the Friday before Christmas, like 2 days later. And we scrambled and we got some coverage, but then they ended up being able to work it out themselves.
Okay.
And so they said, could you take over ER coverage January 20th? And so that's the date.
So you've agreed to take over ER coverage on the 20th?
That's correct.
Okay. What worst case scenario, the hospital closes? How hard is it to reopen as a REH? Have you ever been involved in that?
You have to open as a hospital, then apply for the REH, and it really complicates the process. For us, we'd like to have 60, 90 days to ramp up, because we know, you know, not having that is not to our advantage. But if we're gonna say we're gonna do what's right for this community, we take this thing over ASAP. And try to stop some of the bleeding, you know, use that ER term. We gotta stop some bleeding, we gotta get some vendors paid, we gotta retain some of the staff that are leaving. That's where we would be with that, is we want to take over ASAP. Again, having a 60 to 90 day notice would be great for us, but I don't think you guys have that here. I think that hospital closes, and we've got to reopen it as a hospital, deal with all that licensing stuff, then apply for the REH. We can usually apply, we got the first and second REH designation in the country. There's only 18 out there. And we got that within 60 days, and so we know how to do that. But if it closes, it just really, and then there's staff that doesn't have, you know, maybe they can apply for unemployment, but that's still an interruption. And what little staff you still have, it might go to other places. I don't want to see that, but that's how it is.
Okay. That's my recommendation to you guys. Ultimately, I can't make a decision for you. But I think that once that assignment, we have a form of an assignment. Once that's assigned, your bargaining ability to ask those things is gone.
Our next meeting isn't until the 18th, regular meeting.
It's 2 weeks from today.
So do we need to have a call meeting for that, to go ahead and get it?
And to be able to look over the actual contract that they're proposing for us, because we have no,
Well, I have it, it's very, it's just a traditional assignment. The only additional term is that it can open as a REH. That's the only additional term. So if that's how this board is leaning towards the assignment, we would need to negotiate about what additional terms we want to get that in a final form.
And
And that would have to happen quickly.
Yeah, quick.
And I think that's something that the board needs to think about before they just openly just go ahead and say, hey, we give it to you with the terms that's already in that assignment. Because you have no bargaining power once you go ahead and do this.
And I would like to see what your templates are in your other communities that have an independent board. Who appoints, what that looks like. And I think it would, you know, this board could talk about, you know, if that were the way you go, what types of input would you like to have? I don't know if you guys have any ideas about that now.
We have a board bylaws, that kind of outlines the board's responsibilities and this and that. I'd like it to be shorter than it is.
Yeah.
It's about 15 pages. But that could probably be a good start for you to see, you
And
know.
how, you know, what does it look like? Do they rotate off? It's not great to have the same people on the board for
Yeah.
years and years and years. But I know from the feedback I've had from people on the board, those were the golden days when we had stakeholders that.
And I think when you guys talk about the golden days, I think maybe you're referring to the days when the Adventists were here.
Yes.
And so I have very close ties to the Adventists, like I said last time, so I could even make a few calls and say, hey, what did it look like when you guys were there? So, you know, I think you missed this, but I started my career off with Seventh-day Adventists.
Okay.
And so I know the folks that I actually, you know, made some calls between the last meeting and saying, okay, you know, was there an interest of them coming back or this kind of thing? Because if that was true, the Adventists, I was like, that'd probably be the best thing for this community. But it's just not in their strategic plan for the next, you know, bit. But I could probably ask a few folks to show me kind of what was it like when you were here. And then I could get you a copy of like some standard bylaws and that's at least a jumping off point for you to have for that.
Yeah.
So would the board like to set another called meeting? Is that,
We would need to on short time if we got one.
I mean, because, you know, we have no assignment to look at. We don't have any idea of
She's
the old.
got it, we can get it.
And how quickly can you get those bylaws to us?
Yeah.
Just to look at?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have a call tomorrow and you know, Quentin, the founder of Progressive, being an attorney, but you'll find he's very easy to work with and I think we could get the bylaws and some suggestions. And if there is, you know, some language that you want to add, just get on the phone with us, just pound it out.
Sure.
Before the end of the week.
You can get it to us, look it over and try to set it for Monday,
And,
if that
you know,
works for us.
you guys will need to think about what sort of,
Yeah.
you know, oversight you would like to have. And then we can see if we can agree on that.
So that's what we'll do. We'll just go ahead and we'll schedule a called meeting. I can't say it would be Monday because that's something we have to send out and make sure everybody can attend. So we will schedule one for one day next week. That way the board will have a chance to even look over the assignments and get together maybe some questions that they might, or something they would want to put into the contract as far as to have an independent board to oversee and things like that. So at this time, do we have, are you ready? Do you have enough questions?
No, I was gonna ask, I have a question for Michelle just after we adjourn.
Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll say that.
You've got a motion and a second. Marcia, will you call the roll?
Barton,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Creekmore,
Yes.
Davenport,
Yes.
Minton.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you all.